everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today you're going to be seeing one of the most impressive 1v games that I have seen in a long time. And would it be any surprise that when you're going to be taking on pretty much most of the enemy team single-handedly, you're going to be playing the most overpowered tank in the game? Probably one of, if not the most overpowered tanks in the game of all time. It is the one and only villain of today, the BZ176. So I'm sure a lot of you are going to be cheering on for the enemy team, and maybe some of you are going to be cheering on for the BZ today. Delynth is going to be our hero or our villain. Pitch off in the comments down below as to which one you feel that they are going to be playing in the BZ176. And they're going to be using a turbo with vert stabs and vents on this tank. So they're not focusing on a gun rammer on this vehicle. It's a tank that doesn't really have that much damage per minute. But I think that like a build like this, which focuses on the mobility of the tank and also focuses on that gun handling, with the vents just improving the accuracy. But the bond vents on this tank will be 4% accuracy, will be huge. In my opinion, possibly outweigh the gun rammer depending on your playstyle. So the BZ176, why is this vehicle so overpowered in World of Tanks? Well, it was available not last year, but the year before inside loot boxes. So that would be December 2022 for the very first time. And it has not been sold since. And that's because it's just outrageously broken. Super heavy armor at the front, 250mm of turret armor, 240mm of hull armor, with 152mm of side armor as well. It has some weak points on top of the vehicle, but they're hard to be able to find. And the crazy thing about this tank is 10 degrees of gun depression. I could understand it if it had like 6 degrees of gun depression, it was forced to side scrape, but that's just not the case. It can also work ridgelines like an absolute boss. Now, the top of the vehicle can be overmatched by 124mm caliber guns. So a lot of the large caliber Germans will be able to handle that, like the Ferdinand, the E75, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of the 130mm guns in the game as well, when you fire AP, can be able to deal with that as well. So tanks like the Skoda T56, I guess, do really well in that regard. But the main reason is because this tank does this. 720 damage. That's over half the hit points of a tier 7 heavy, for goodness sake. This vehicle is able to one-shot some of the vehicles on the enemy team 50% of the time if they're able to penetrate with these HE shells. Now, these HE shells are expensive. They cost like 7,000 a pop, but they have 225mm of penetration. So they're kind of just as good with regards to pen as the tier 10 FV215B183, and you know what that thing can do with those HE rounds. Now, sure, these only hit for 800 compared to the 1,750 that you'll be used to on the FV215B183 or the FV4005. But when you're down a couple of tiers and you've got way more armor than those two vehicles have, and you've got as much gun depression as the FV405 has, but also with turret armor, yeah, you don't have to be an expert to figure out why this vehicle is just so darn powerful. So it looks like Delynth here are trying to go for a shot on the 45 TP, and yeah, that's literally 2/3 of their tank. It's crazy. That's a tier 7 heavy losing 2/3 of their vehicle. Although that one did look like it had a stock turret, so even more brutal to have to meet a vehicle like this. Do you know what? This vehicle is so overpowered that Wargaming just announced that they're going to be doing Onslaught at tier 8. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm really looking forward to playing Onslaught at tier 8, to be honest with you. But this vehicle is so overpowered that the only tank that they're truly banning is this vehicle. You won't be able to play this in the tier 8 Onslaught, which is meant to be a casual game mode. And I think that's a fantastic call by Wargaming, just excluding overpowered tanks from the matchmaker. And just how much more do Wargaming have to avoid and not face up to the fact that they should really just nerf this tank? If it's getting to the stage where owners of this vehicle can't even play it in new game modes like tier 8 Onslaught, how can it be fair that those owners get to play it inside the random queue where everyone else with the people who don't have this vehicle, or even the people who do have this vehicle who don't want to play this vehicle and just play other tanks, you know, inside the game? It's mad. I still think the way to nerf this tank is to move it up to tier 9. And keep its, maybe up its AP pen a little bit, maybe its rate of fire a little bit, its hit points a little bit, and then keep pretty much everything else the same. Or just nerf the HE rounds down to about 175mm of pen on the HE. It would force the tank to use AP more. I think 650 is fine on a vehicle like this. It's really that 800 alpha damage that absolutely, truly makes this outrageous. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I paused the video right here, right now, to show you that this begins. It's one versus 9 on the enemy team, with them having 4,700 hit points. And Delynth is going to start it with quite a gun line. And they're going to start their 1 versus 9 by lowering the hit points off probably the most dangerous tank that's still left on the enemy team. That was a very healthy Progetto. And so by shooting that Progetto, that means the autoloader can't use their hit points by coming around the corner. And I almost think it's more important to put the Progetto down to a one-shot kind of opportunity there than it would be to go for one of those juicy tier 6 or tier 7 tanks they could remove in a single shot. So, BZ176, 1 versus 9. Who is your money on today? Well, it's not the STRV. And this is often what happens in these kind of scenarios. But the enemy team think, this is over. We can all just go in, right? But one by one by one. Well, the Progetto, who just took 719 damage, is clearly not wanting to take another one and chilling around at the back. So, Delynth, left or right? Luckily, they're in the perfect kind of scenario here where the opponents literally have to come at them from the hill. Or, you know what, they don't have to. Borask, a little bit cheeky there. But they actually... what's this? A tier 6 managed to damage a BZ176? They made Delynth bleed their own blood? Oh my goodness gracious. Could this possibly be the start of the end? Who knows? Maybe. Delynth now up to 4,500 damage. That would be a great game for a tier 10 tank, let alone a tier 8. And now trying to hunt this EBR Hotchkiss, who is now going, guys, we have like 9 players, right? And this is exactly what the Hotchkiss should be doing. Just kiting, waiting for the artillery to go after them. Well, they were doing it right for about 30 seconds. Unfortunately, the EBR Hotchkiss getting caught out there by the BZ176. And that's just awful for the enemy team now. So Delynth has dealt with 3 vehicles solo, dispatching them one by one, but there's still 6 vehicles left on the enemy team of the 9, and here they come. They're coming right forwards for Delynth. Delynth auto-aims, puts one in through the tier 6 autoloader, although the Progetto has managed to get the side. They put in 1 shell, bounce a second, bounce a 3rd gold shell. That Progetto is now drained, and what is Delynth going to do now in this situation? They've got a damaged gun for the next 45 seconds. This vehicle's reticle is going to be blooming right out. And when you've got a monster reload on this vehicle of without a gun rammer of about 22 seconds with this build, they're going to have to be careful in this scenario. One miss could prove their demise, but also hanging around for artillery, that's going to be an even more horrible end. Especially when you consider this vehicle does have rather bad upper hull armor and only 41 on top of the tank with a nice big easy target to hit. But I really like this play. Delynth is realizing if I sit up on top of the hill, they're just going to pepper me down with artillery. So even though they're outnumbered, still in a 1 versus 5 situation, this would still be a Kolobanos medal if it wasn't for Delynth already having destroyed 4 vehicles on the enemy team. Now Delynth is going on the prowl. They've got 1 rocket left, and look how disciplined they are to still hold that 1 rocket. Although their repair kit just came back off cooldown, and they've decided to not repair their gun. Okay, there we go. Putting in a little bit of RNG against the Progetto, but when you've got 230 pen like this vehicle has, or 225 if we're being exact, you don't really have to aim at a glass cannon kind of medium tank like a Progetto. Okay, so Delynth now up to 6 kills, changed their 1 versus 9 to a 1 versus 4, and the enemy team's doing now exactly what they should have been doing a few minutes ago, and that is, why not just get 1 or 2 tanks in the cap, especially on the Tundra map? There's a big rock right in the middle, which would mean you would be completely safe away from the prying eyes of the BZ176 up on top of the hill, but they were a little bit too silly to do that. And now, suddenly, after their 1 versus 9 team now becomes a 1 versus 4, they're having to do the unthinkable and capping the game against an overpowered tank who wants to camp up on top of the hill instead of actually trying to. And oh dear, I think you can see that the Lurver thought, hey, you know what, it's 1 versus 9, it's fine. I'll go make a teammate. Or I don't know what Lurvers do. Lurvers just probably go and alt-tab and go and try and find better premium tanks in the shop now. Oh, I can't throw shade at the Lurver. It's not that bad of a vehicle. But still, this is going to be a nightmare situation for Delynth, and they realize the Lurver's AFK. I got a bit greedy with the shot, but let's move on and try and deal with the cap circle here. And oh my word, they get ammo racked with 10 seconds left. They're actually not fully loaded against the artillery here. And the artillery shut down. The Super Hellcat now up on the hill, but Delynth is now ammo racked. But luckily their repair kit's coming off cooldown again, so they're going to be able to repair. And now their 1 versus 9 becomes a 1 versus 3. And unless the Lurva comes back, who was actually on 3 kills so far this game, so I guess they just thought that they're done and they're not going to chase the BZ-176, and they got better things to do, bigger fish to fry. Although in this situation, this is probably one of the biggest fish that you've got to fry on the enemy team, especially in a tier 6 matchup like this. So Delynth, now up to 6,800 damage, is going to finish off the Lurva because they could come back. And also, they're spotting. And that means that if Delynth is lit up, that the Super Hellcat will be able to get shots from wherever they are. But also, Delynth just can't manage to flank the Super Hellcat. But by getting rid of that static vision that the enemy team has, and oh man, this is getting ugly. Showing you the artillery doing a fantastic job here of taking advantage of the BZ-176's poor armor. And they're still getting spotted from the hill. Is this going to be like an absolute heartbreak here? The 1 versus 9, now a 1 versus 2, having vanquished 7 vehicles single-handedly. Delynth now doing enough damage to be able to have an incredible game for any vehicle, let alone for a BZ-176. And oh my lord, they hotshot the Super Hellcat up on the hill. Oh my word. Now, Delynth, up to 9 frags, has got 1 more to be able to claim that Pools medal and take down this 1 versus 9. But where is this AMX 13F3 going to be? They've done a lot of damage to them all the way through this battle. Constant harassment from the artillery on the enemy team, and even one artillery taking as far as to going cap inside the circle, which is, it's funny when the artillery has more brain cells than the rest of the players combined inside this matchup, and even like the Lurva going AFK in this scenario. So now, what does Delynth do? They've got 3 minutes and 20 seconds left on this battle. They need 1 minute and 40 to be able to cap. Are they going to go hunting for the artillery that's been hounding them this entire battle? Or are they going to go and try and just sit in the cap circle? Now, if they sit in the cap circle, the artillery could end up maybe doing a blind fire, could try and get an ambush off in that kind of a scenario, try and approach from a funky angle. And now they're down to 272 hit points. It's starting to get within the range of where that tier 6 French self-propelled gun, if they do sneak up behind Delynth, are going to give them a run for their money. Interesting that Delynth would go for the HE shells here. I think by far it'd be better to switch out for an AP shell, just in case, I don't know, you hit some kind of gun or some kind of insane spaced armor, although there would have to be some ridiculous spaced armor on the AMX 13F3 for that to happen. Whereas the AP shells on this tank with that 650 alpha damage, and this is a large caliber gun, it's 160mm, meaning that can overmatch all 50mm plates in the game, will be able to easily one-shot that vehicle. And also, I guess, comes down to shell velocity in this situation, but I think this tank has the same shell velocity. No, it doesn't. It actually has 860 compared to 760, so you can get that extra 80 meters a second shell velocity on the AP, which, you know what, in some situations could be all the difference. So having gone on a little bit of a mystery tour around, having a little bit of a dabble, a little bit of scout to where the artillery is, now Delynth is going to go into the cap circle. And you know what? I think this has been a misplay by Delynth. I think they should have just started to cap immediately rather than try and greedily go for the Pools medal in this situation. Because remember what I said about the cap circle? If the artillery had gone in there and had been intelligent with the way that they kited Delynth, I think they could have been able to actually cap this one fully out before Delynth was able to catch them in the circle. It's a very unusual map, Tundra. There aren't many, if any, other maps in the game where there is cover inside the cap circle. But I think it's because it's quite a small map and because otherwise it's just too easy to be able to get those interrupts. And I think on a map like this, where there's so many different angles to approach the cap circle, it's actually a beautiful map with regards to that. And while it does suck if you're in a super heavy, slow tank and there's a light tank just driving around the rock in the middle of the cap circle towards the end of the game, I feel like it's an interesting mechanic for this map alone. It does provide a little bit of novelty. Okay, so Delynth, having got this far in this game, the 1 versus 9, now a 1 versus 1, and even though it's a tier 6 self-propelled gun, Delynth is expecting them to come from the north, but oh my lord, they're back behind Delynth. Delynth turns their tank round and hot shots the victory. GG, Delynth. Oh my goodness gracious. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, irrelevant of the fact that this vehicle is bonkers OP, irrelevant of the fact that they were dealing with tier 6 tanks, this was a ridiculous game. 1 versus 9, and to be able to have the nerves of steel and the hit points to be able to get through this one, you don't see many 1 versus 9s in World of Tanks. This is an absolute tremendous feat, and congratulations to you, Delynth, on an exciting game of World of Tanks. And it has to be something truly special for the BZ176 to be featured on YouTube, because the vehicle, the great games in this tank are almost to a penny. But even with how good this vehicle is, this was just a stonking game. So Delynth gets pretty much all of the medals pinned on them here. The Pascucci's for destroying 2 self-repel guns. The one that everybody wants, the Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against at least 5, in this case 9. The Pool's medal for picking up those 10 kills. A Steel Wall medal for blocking enough damage to destroy this tank a couple times over. A High Caliber for the rather casual 7,500 damage, literally more than the rest of their team combined. And remember, as this is a premium tank, Delynth makes 83,000 credits profit even after that tremendous ammunition cost. So Delynth, congratulations to you on one of the best Kolobanovs I've ever seen in World of Tanks. And thank you so much for uploading onto the What Replays website and putting QuickyBaby in the title to be able to get my attention. I absolutely love watching community replays and amazing games like yours, Delynth. Congratulations once again. And I hope all of you out there enjoyed this video as well. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it's released on Sunday, I'm going to be going live on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby with the Sunday Tech Tree Showcase. This week, it'll be the Object 430U. So come along and see the line that I still recommend more than any other line in the game for a new player. So really looking forward to seeing you all live right now. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.